Hi all. I failed to mention in the last interview, our generations have all been involved through the generations in both World War One and World War Two, and then the Rhodesian War. In World War One, one of my dad's uncles, who was just younger than his dad, James Percival Gifford, um, he fought in Delver Wood and unfortunately was killed by a direct hit from a field gun in Delver Wood. And very sad. The only thing his parents, my great grandmother and great grandfather, got was a note through the post stating, your son served his country gallantly and his king gallantly, but unfortunately was killed in Delver Wood. And that's all they got back from, and just a little bit of a typed out note and stuff like that. Unlike what we got, having the Padre come and, sort of try and comfort our family if any one of us were killed in active service. And then my dad, during the Second World War, um, he in the beginning he wasn't called up, and then he got hold of the local member Jackie Howman, and he said to him, "I need to go and fight for king and country." Jackie Howman said, "No, you are a farmer, you can't go, and you are needed in the country." And he said, "No, my dad is able enough, and my dad can carry on with the farm and that. I need to be going out and fighting for king and country. So I need to get out." Anyway, within less than 21 days, they sent him through to, I think it was number 2 training school, but anyway, in Bulawayo, where the trade fairgrounds was later. And that's where they were trained. And then there's a photo of my dad, mum, and granddad and grandma getting where they were seeing my dad off on the station in Bulawayo to go to the Second World War, and they were trained down to, I think they went to Durban, then climbed on a ship from there, and then they were offloaded in Cairo or somewhere there, and then joined different units. And he started off with the King's Royal Rifles, but then shortly after that joined the LRDG, the Long Range Desert Group, which was known also as the Desert Rats. And don't get mixed up with the Rats of Tobruk, because that was an Australian group. The Desert Rats was made up of Rhodesians and New Zealanders, and one or two and a few British officers and stuff like that, and they were the forerunners to the SAS. But yeah, he was in that unit. I've still got his medals today and his cap badge, which is a scorpion in a circle, because they used to give Rommel a hard time, hit him from behind, give information to the British troops to where and what and how the Germans were reacting, and the Italians. There's also a photo there of the Italians prisoners of war that they took, and my dad said they never trusted the Italian prisoners of war, because they'd walk up with a white flag, trying to surrender, and the last minute they'd open up on them and start shooting at them. So they always had a couple of Bren guns trained on them until they were laid down their arms and everything, because they couldn't trust them. But the one incident that he talked about, and he talked about that they always were told they had to dig their cars in. So they used to run around in these little Chevs and Ford 4x4s with balloon tires on them. There's a picture of my dad sitting behind the steering wheel with a bush hat on, and some of his other guys and shaving in the bush and that. And they used to wash their outer clothes, because they didn't have a lot of water with them. So they used to wash their outer clothes in petrol and just use a little bit of water to sponge down their bodies, and that were closer to, like their vests and their body and their underpants and that were against their bodies. But they also tried to shave as much as they could. But with those cars, they were told to dig them in at night, or when they were stationary, dig them into shell scrapes. And my dad said that his lot and his car that they were always lazy to dig them in, and that actually saved them, and that saved them from capture. The one guy took a shovel to go for a walk, to take the shovel for a walk, and he went up the dune. And as he got to the top of the dune and looking over, he saw that the Jerrys were coming, and he ran down the dune, and they were two cars, and the other car had dug in, and they tried to get the car out, but they couldn't get it out quick enough, so they left it there. And they all jumped on my dad's car and they zooted off, and they just missed being taken prisoner of war. And my gran also said she had the feeling the one night that there was something on the go, and she got down on her hands and on her knees next to the bed and prayed for my dad, and my dad afterwards said, yes, that was the night that we were nearly taken prisoner of war. But years later, I was having his medals mounted and everything here in Townsville, and mine done and all the rest of it. And we were talking, this old guy who did the medals and the historian and that, we were talking about my dad's vehicle and the LRDG, and he said, about 5 years before, there was one of these vehicles that were pulled out of the sand in the Western Desert, completely pristinely preserved. Just some of the paint had been worn off by the sand. And I said, well, that must have been the other unit that my dad was with, the other car that my dad was with that was captured, or the Germans just left it there. And that particular vehicle now is sitting in one of the museums in Britain. So that one that the guys jumped onto his vehicle because they had been too lazy to dig in, as it had been pulled out of the sand just lately. But after that, my dad came back and he got married, and there's a picture of my dad and mum's wedding during the war, and my mum knew he was coming home, and they were just engaged, and she organized the whole wedding and everything. So when he got home, she said, you got no damn choice, you're getting married now, and if you go back and whatever, and she planned everything, even to falling pregnant and the whole tootie. And my dad, they got married, and the reverend that was marrying them there was the founder of Morgan's Mission. They called him Bumbo Low, A.A. Low, who Andrew Lowe's school is named after as well. So they got married. An old family friend. We knew them very well because my grandparents were also Morgan's Mission. But yeah, that was basically, so our family through the generations, both wars and the Rhodesian War, have served in the military. My brother was also he was 10RR, he was a corporal in 10RR, and also wounded in the war as well. And then my two cousins were there. My one cousin, Major, as I mentioned previously, Major, he became the youngest major in the TF battalions, Hilton Gifford, who was known in 10RR fondly as Captain Bubble. Most of the people in 10RR loved serving with him. And then the other cousin, David Gifford Duff, as he was commonly known as, he was a lutie in 2 Commando RLI, and then left from there and went to Scouts, and he was in the Scouts, and he was involved in that. Percy Hostin talked about it in the attack on the Zipper commanders in Botswana, on that main road in Botswana, where they blew up that Land Rover. Anyway, that's it on that.
Well, I'm back with John Gifford in Australia. John, welcome back for your second part of your talk. And so without further ado, John, leaving off from last time, I'm going to hand over to you.
Leaving off from last time, I just want to put one correction in is, in RLI, I wasn't an MAG gunner there, just an ordinary rifleman / troopy. But when I went to 2RR, that's when I became, and I volunteered to carry the MAG. Some people said you're meant to carry the MAG, but hey, I think in a contact, that was the only mother to have, because she talked the right language. Another one that I'd like to speak about is a sergeant, a well-known sergeant in the military ranks and within RLI was Eddie Fouchier. Eddie, we used to call him Apache because of the birthmark on his face. One magic soldier, really. He could smell the opposition. He could smell them from a way off. And I wasn't in the incident, but the guys came back because I was still a boy soldier and wasn't allowed to go and patrol in the Chesa APA. But he had a contact in the APA just after we arrived at Chesa, and the guys said he would always take the MAG because he was a phenomenal good shot with the MAG, and he lined out his belts and he just said to the guys, "Get ready, they're coming. I know they're coming. I can smell them." And about 5-10 minutes later, here they came, a group of, I think it was about 4, the guys reckon, down the track, and he just wiped them, the whole lot of them, with that MAG. He was just phenomenal, that guy. And then in another time, we were all patrolling as a commando in Mozambique. He just said to the guys, "There's a base camp here. There's a base camp close by. Be alert." And they found the base camp, and the whole lot of them, they were sleeping, and their sentry, their scout, was sitting in the tree sleeping. And he said to the guys, "You take that one, just sign language." And just, again, got rid of the whole lot because one scout was sleeping and they shot him out of the tree, fell out like a sack of potatoes out of the tree, and the rest all were annihilated in the camp. Can't remember the exact number, but it was about 10, 15 guys, and they wiped them out. Yeah. He eventually became colour sergeant, and then I think he went across, did the conversion course to an officer, and went as a regular officer to RAR. I think it was one RAR he went into, but a phenomenal, phenomenal soldier. He was the epitome of a good soldier. Yeah. Anyway, back to where I was before. I was let go by Shabani Mine, and I got a job at the cotton board up in Glendale. And so in 76, instead of carrying on with B Company 2RR, was transferred up to the cotton board. I had to start the job, and they released me to go and do that. In season, I'd get an exemption because cotton was an important export and money earner to be able to export cotton because we had such good grade cotton. So we'd export that, and then in the out of season when they weren't ginning or we weren't receiving cotton, I had to go and do call-ups, and I went and carried on continuous service. And from there, I joined E Company 1RR, and we went to Kotwa, the Kotwa airstrip, north of Motoko, near the Nyamapanda border post. 10RR had left to go back on R&R, and we took over that area. And whilst we were there, we had a very sad incident. We lost one of our guys, Phil Armstrong, and they were out on patrol. It was a couple of days before we were then supposed to go on R&R, and for some reason or other, he decided to take a smoke, and he lit up a smoke. The tours were there, they were close by. He lit it up, they alerted to them where he was. The first draw, they zeroed in, obviously. In the second draw, they fired, and it hit him, and in the head, went through. Our medic tried to save him, was very overcast, and so we couldn't fly. They couldn't fly in with choppers from Motoko and pick him up. And our medic, he was in the back of the truck and trying to pump him to keep him alive on the way to Mudzi, because they could pick him up at Mudzi. There was a chopper at Mudzi, which was about 40, 50 k's away. But unfortunately, Phil passed away, and it was a big damper on our skies. And then what made it worse, when we heard that the pastor had gone around to home and gone to, tell his wife the bad news. And any wife seeing the Green Mamba putting up outside their yard and seeing the pastor the padre coming up the road, knew there had to be something horrible. and because he was in the bush. And she just burst out crying. And the little boy came up to her and he said, "Don't worry, Mummy. Daddy will be coming home tomorrow and he'll fix everything." Little guy, no, Daddy was never going to come home.
Yeah.
And those were the horrible parts of our war.
Yeah.
When children had to grow up without their fathers. And yeah, there was a lot of incidents like that.
That was Phil Armstrong, right? You're
Yes.
talking about. And then also in the same sort of period, November 1976 was Charlie for Mark.
Yeah, no, Charlie for Mark always gets to me because first day kindy, we were in the same class. We sat in those days, kindy KG school used to have the double desk, and we sat next to each other, and immediately we become, best buddies, best friends. And Charlie came from a very poor family, and they tried. It was a big family, and what a brilliant guy. He used to come home. My folks would allow them to come home to the farm, our farm was right there by Carl Dam. And he used to come home to us for the school holidays. But my dad always used to insist that kids should be at home with their parents at Christmas time, which was quite a punishment for them. And they used to battle with each other, the whole family, to who was going to get what when they were eating and all the rest of it. And the one Christmas, I said to my dad, "I want to get him a Christmas present." My dad said, "What?" I said, "He loves fishing, but he only goes with a line around a piece of stick, and he goes and fishes in the Monteligui River." So we went and bought him a fishing rod with all the kits and that. And when I saw him back at school, he said, that fed our whole family. He said, "I'd go down and catch lots of bream and take them home, and our family had a bream for Christmas." And he said it always, we always had food then. So yeah, that was great. But anyway, Charlie went through junior school with me, boarding school. Welfare used to supply his uniforms and stuff like that. And then went into high school. We in the same dorm, same cubicle in Fort House at high school, still great friends. And then he left at the end of Form 2. And he started with the railways up in the Det Wankie area. When 129, we went in at 129, who should be at Willawellen but Charlie. I didn't know he was going to be in the same call up as me. And we were both volunteered to go to RLI. But unfortunately, when we got to RLI, we were split, and he went to 3 Commander, I went to 2 Commander. But when we came out of RLI, we went to B Company 1RR, the whole thing, and our camps together. He was an MAG gunner. I said I was going to take MAG. He said, we're both going to be MAG gunners. And we used to try and do the same thing. Anyway, he was Sergeant Major Frank Labuschagne. When we first joined, he was still a corporal, Frank Labuschagne, and he became Frank's MAG gunner. I became Buddy York's, Lieutenant Buddy York's MAG gunner. And in the Matibi, when we were ambushed at Gungwa, we just dropped off Frank and Charlie and that. And when he heard the contact and the ambush, he just said to Frank, "We've got to go. My brother's been hurt. We've got to go." And we were about 4 Ks away from where we dropped them off. And he just ran full speed in front of everybody. And he said, "I'm going to go and see my brother's been hurt." But that was the kind of guy he was. He would, give his last anything to you, for you, give his life for you. He was just a brilliant, brilliant guy. And then I left to B Company 2RR and was with E Company 1RR, and we moved because 10RR came back to the Yamasoto, the airstrip, Kotwe airstrip. So we were moved to Gozi Keep, which was further in, a horrible bloody place. It was dry and hot, hot, hot. Anyway, we were at Gozi Keep, and another ex-Fort Vic hire, Peter de Klerk, Tubby, we used to call him Tubby, and he came to me and he said, "Oh, have you heard that Charlie Vermaak was killed?" And I went straight away to the ops room and I said to them, "Can I go? I need to go. This is my brother. I need to go." But by the time I'd found out, he'd already been buried. So to this day, I know he's buried somewhere in Shabani, but I don't know. I was never at his funeral. I could never say goodbye. In a way, maybe that was good, but because it just feels like I'll maybe see him again. But in a way, it wasn't good because couldn't come to terms with him being taken. But I believe in the ambush it was, and I was told by the guys that they hadn't had any contacts and they couldn't flush out the enemy, and Major York decided to put in a decoy, and they had one of the sticks acting like they were having a party and drunkenness and that around this dam, and they had set routes in which the enemy could only come in on, and they ambushed those set routes. And these guys were made as if they were drinking beer. They didn't have any beer, but they had a big fire there, and they were singing. And yes, it drew the enemy in, and they actually came across the bottom end of the dam wall. And this is what I was told that had happened. And anybody who was there could correct me. I know Phil Nell was there. And if I'm wrong at it, please correct me. But they came across the front, and old Charlie took out quite a few with the MAG before an RPD gunner ran up onto the dam wall and then sprayed them and only killed Charlie. But that was very, very sad. Yeah. But anyway, after that, on that Gozy Keep, when we were set out to go and one of the sticks, we were tasked to go and put out flares for the Canberra bombers to come and bomb the camp just on the other side of Yamapanda, and there was a base camp there. We had to go and put out the flares in exact spots and all the rest of it, and so that the Canberra could come in and press the button, and these flares were coming in, and it was being an arrow formation and all the rest of it. And apparently they got good kills with that bombing raid. And I don't know if there were any other people there, but I believe the SAS or that were in Mozambique at that stage, and the cans came in and did that bombing raid. After that E Company, it would have been coming close to Christmas that year, and we moved. Our next camp was in Marewa. We had a lot of enemy there, and into those different TTLs going towards the Nyadiri River and all that. Yeah, we had a 4-5 there, and they were ambushing quite a lot. So we got this big irrigation, those big aluminium irrigation pipes.
Yeah.
And we painted it all camouflage, and we put on a box at the back, and it looked like a 106 on the top, and we strapped it around, and they left us alone because they thought, man, this is going to blow us to bits and pieces. And we travel around with this thing strapped, the roll cage of the 4-5, and it's strapped in there, and it really looked mean. This big barrel thing, and it's going to rip them to pieces. But then that trip, yes, up in towards the Chikwaka Mangwende, we were called out. It was notified to us by Jock Matoko that they'd got a message from Central Charge Office in Salisbury that the one constable there's dad had been murdered by the tours, and we went to go and check it out. Anyway, we got the log stat of where it was. We went out and had a check, and oh man, that was horrible, horrible, horrible. First thing was, they killed him. They killed this old guy. He was an old retired policeman, but he'd been retired for many years, and good 20 years, and he was the headman. And the tours came in, and they said he was a sellout because he'd served the government way back then, and they didn't like sellouts, and they were going to kill him. And they did it in front of his family. He had wives and that, and they put him in. But they implemented a whole 30-round AK magazine into him and into his head. And By the time we got there, it was about a week later that we'd actually got the int that he was there. And they'd said to the family, you don't move him. We are watching you until the army comes. And because he's a sellout, we want you to suffer with him here in the middle of the kraal. By the time we got there, he was flowing through the kraal. It was just maggots and everything. And it was a skeleton with just, oh man, the smell was horrible, really horrible. Today, I can still smell that smell today, and that they could do that to their own kind. There was just so much barbarity in what a lot of those guys did. Anyway, we said to them, pack him in a blanket and bury him. Give the old man a burial. Yeah, but by that time we couldn't follow tracks because there'd been rain. It was December, and we didn't know which way they're going. We said to them where. Nobody wanted to talk because they'd already killed the old man, and obviously they were shit scared of their own lives. But on that camp as well, we had that SB guy talking about the Chikwaka and the Orobi farm and Orobi village, Orobi trading store and that. Well, that was a bit eerie, and we knew the tours were around there all the time, and I went in. We went in a stick, 2 sticks actually, and we went to Orobi Farm. We were dropped off at Orobi Farm, and we had a walk in, which was about 3K walk from Orobi Farm to that business center. And still today, it freaks me out. It leaves me when you hear dogs barking in a distance and it echoes between buildings at night. And we knew that they were there wandering around. We couldn't get hold of them. We crept up to the village. We had an informant there who we went in. Some of the guys stayed back on the edge of the village, and the shopping center, and myself and an SB guy and we were blackened up. And because I could speak Shona fluently and if you put me behind closed doors or behind a wall, people thought it was a black man speaking Shona, because I'd grown up speaking Shona before I could speak English. So yeah, we went through, but it peed me off a bit. 2 of the guys, they were obviously from Salisbury, and they were babbling away again. And I said, what are you guys doing? And no, we're talking in their language. I said, that doesn't even sound like their language. The people are not, these guys are not stupid. They know that it's white guys that are trying to make as if they're speaking language. Stop it. You're going to have us killed here. We'd gone in there. It was supposed to be a fairly, all right evening, but it was cold. And we'd gone in there with a pair of denims and a shirt and an old floppy hat. And damn, did we get cold in that shopping center. But for some reason or other, they had got tipped off and they got out of there, and we couldn't find them. That was the Chikwaka, and there was always something going on. And that RLI one commander RLI were also with us. Captain Scott Donnellan was the captain in charge of one commander at that stage. I believe the OC was off sick or something, so Captain Scott Donnellan was there. It was us, them, off the football field just in front of the police station at Marewa. One of the RLI medics brought out 2 strippers from Salisbury for the RLI, but they didn't trust the RLI because the RLI one commander were underneath the big gum trees there, and they said, well, they'd come out in a little mini moke with this guy. And they were thinking, well, this guy, the RLI guys, to keep them there, would string them up with their car up in the gum trees with a block and tackle, so they couldn't get away. So they said, oh, well, we'll leave it here for the territorials. With these territorials, they're quite tame and all the rest of it. They won't do anything. Well, when they got back, no, these territorials weren't tame. And they'd picked up the mini moke. We'd picked up the mini moke, and on the top of a shell scrape, we'd put beer crates, and we put the mini moke on the top of beer crates on the top of the shell scrape, so they couldn't get going anyway. And anyway, we got a free show that night, and these two strippers stuck it around, and eventually Quintorif, our captain, said, "No, come on, you girls have got to go. You can't be staying and distracting my boys all the time. You got to get going back to Salisbury." So yeah, they got. I can't remember the strippers' names, but they were some of the more well-known strippers that always used to go out to the bush and strip for the boys. And they'd pick up a little bit of morale with the boys. After that, we did another camp, and I can't remember. It was E Company had been disbanded then, and I think it was B Company one or all. We went to Bindura, and we based up in Bindura. Our platoon was sent out to Madziwa Mine, and we based up at Madziwa Mine. We got one of the mine houses, which was quite larny, really nice house at Madziwa Mine. We used to go to the Madziwa butchery, the mine butcher, and the guy used to give us, we hardly paid anything for meat and stuff like that, because I think they were just too happy that we were there to look after them. And we got good meat, and we'd have a steak and egg and that when we come back from patrol, and it was mush. It was really nice. But our manager at the mine, he was a real cowboy. He had his Peugeot 404 mine car, and on the door was a rack for his shotgun, his pump action shotgun. And the one day we get a call, "You better get going quickly down in the compound." There's in the compound. So we head down. Not unknown to us, the old mine manager, he'd gone down there with his Peugeot, and he'd heard where these were on the outside. The terrorists were on the outside of the fence trying to get food. And you think back now, they were obviously bloody starving. They were young men. They could have only been about 15 or so, but were still carrying AKs and all the rest of it. And he screamed up, wheeled off the shotgun, and shot both of them with his pump action shotgun through the fence. By the time we got there, Dover's Red Rover, everything was, but they got these two guys. But then again, at that one, we were called out. It was a keep. It was a little tribal trust land in the farming area there. I can't remember what its name was, but it had a keep in that. And we were told that night it had been revved, and we were sent in the morning, and we had crocodiles then, snaps, and we went into the keep, and then we were told, "No, we've got to go out and pick up the trackers, games department tracker, at an airfield, and bring him back into the keep again." And then we go back, and we dropped off troops with the games department tracker to go and follow tracks. They took off, and on our way out, all we heard was "stop, stop, stop, stop" from behind through the radio. We'd stopped, and it was a wet, rainy season, and one of the back wheels had stood on not on the percussion cap of the nil cap of the landmine, but on the side of it. It had tipped the landmine up, and the landmine was standing like that. We'd gone in, we'd come out, we'd gone in again, and we were on our way out, and we stood this landmine up. And if the Lord wasn't with us that day, I don't know. And it was boosted as well underneath, with jerry cans of fuel underneath, the old paraffin tins of fuel. So it would have been a horrible big bang, plus the flames and everything around that. And then that camp there was a group that had come in, a big group, and they were all wearing Chinese rice camouflage as well. Pretty much your regular, well jacked up, well trained tours and that. And we went out. They revved up one of the farmhouses in the Mariwa area. We took out a stick out there to follow up. On our way back, we heard almighty bang, and we thought, wow. don't take this road that we come in on. We took another road. And when we got back to the mine, towards the mine, one of the farmers' tractors that took laborers to the mine to work had hit a landmine. One of its back wheels, detonation. The old tractor driver was killed. And the one who they always used to sit one on either mudguard, and drive with the tractor that way. And then the rest of them were on the trailer. And the one who was sitting on the mudguard that took the blast lost his legs and arms, and it was down. And we were trying to save him, but we couldn't save him. But they'd laid that landmine for us, because we'd been over that area in the morning earlier, and on the way back to hit the landmine, because they knew we would gone out and we would come back that way, and they'd laid that landmine there. And the tow bar had blown off and dug into the ground, and it had thrown all the occupants on the trailer off into the bush. And they reckon that they took about 4 days to find these occupants, because they just ran off straight through barbed wire fences and ran away. And eventually they got them back, but it was just, it blew that tractor to absolute pieces. And yeah, not a nice sight there. There was a lot of blood and gore and everything there. And then we went to Rashinga, the next camp. I was with A Company 1RR, Major Lang. We had a 2-5. We were going towards Nyamasoto airstrip to go and patrol the cordon sanitaire, and also at the same time looking for some meat for a braai, because there was a lot of kudu in that area, and we were told, okay, you can go and shoot a kudu, bring it back, and we chop it up and have a nice braai with a kudu. On the way out, the 2-5 hit a landmine, so that messed up everything of that going out to go and check the cordon sanitaire. And that night we had to, until the wreckers came out to pick up the 2-5 and take it back for repairs, we had to guard it that night. And in that area there was always a lot of hyena, and you're trying to keep quiet there so that you won't make yourself known that you were there watching this thing. And these damn hyenas around the place, and they're trying to have a little bit of a munch on you as well. What we did was we got a tin of bully beef, or chopped ham, and we put it over. We punctured it a bit, and we put it over our gas cooker undercover, and got it really hot, and then chucked it at the hyena. And the only thing took this thing and bit into it, but I took off because this thing was burning its mouth. Obviously stuck to its teeth, but it got rid of him for the night. It didn't come back again. He didn't like that burning chopped ham. It wasn't nice chopped ham as far as he was concerned. But then about a week later, we went out again to do the trip with 2-4-5s, and we did get a kudu, and we had a nice big kudu bull, and we had a nice trip. But on that camp as well, myself and one other guy, I can't remember who it was, we were sent from there to Mukas, to help the SB to monitor the Mozambican side camp and see what movement there was in. So some guys have talked about the radio tower there at Mukas before, and having to climb that radio tower. And it was next to the surf club, which I've got that notice board that was outside the surf club. My daughter is a graphic design artist, and got a picture of it, and she's done a replica of it up, and I've got it in my pub. I've got the surf club and members only put up in a frame in my pub. So yeah, it was pretty good. Anyway, we were up and down that mast, and it was just before Robbie Carruthers, who was an district officer with the INTAF, who also went to Fort Vic with me, one lovely guy, same age as me. When we left, he was ambushed and killed around Chiswiti there. But up and down that tower, and every now and again you get somebody on the other side, they're pointing an RPG-7 at you. And you learned how to get up that slowly up to the top, but you learned how to get down very fast when they started pointing RPG at you.
Back in Dotito with D Company 1RR.
Yep, that was the next camp in Dotito. We were based, there was an old derelict or non-used old shop there that we used as our base in De Tito, because De Tito, as you came into De Tito, the one came from Darwin, the other road went straight through the Chivarro Hills to Mukus, and the other one went up north, what was that area, towards Centenary and Resambo, that right up towards the border where Zambia, Mozambique, and Rhodesia used to meet, up in that where that L came through, sort of thing.
Okay.
Anyway, the other road went up there, and we were right on the corner of that road. And that by that time, we'd had the integration of the people used to call them the Bala Bala Wonders, the guys that were trained at the old school that was at Bala Bala, the training place at Bala Bala, where you got a lot of your later years black troops that came through there. And yeah, we had a couple of not so nice times then. We were called out. There was a keep on the way. You had to go through the Chivarro Hills. Now, the Chivarro Hills had a lot of steep and go through rivers and stuff like that. And you had the, I think it was Marymount, which was behind the Chivarro Hills there. And there was a keep there. We'd actually been, we called out to this keep, and we went there, and two sergeants, myself, and another guy, Paul Barter, we went to check on tracks and stuff like that. And to this day, I just don't know why they'd shot a lot of the cattle in the keeps crawl outside that night, and we followed tracks, but it went into a marshy area, and it was like there was a lot of water lilies and stuff like that, and we were going chest deep in water, and the turns are not that thick. They're not going to go wander through there for no reason. Anyway, the sergeant was leading. We went through there, and he always wanted to go at full speed and see how fast he could walk. And we did a circle, came back, and we were coming back through this area adjacent to this stream that ran through that big pond. And he'd gone, and there was a footprint in there, but going towards where we were coming from. And there was like a little stream that came in, and it had been raining before, and there was wet sand in there. And you could see when you stand in wet sand like it, and you pull your foot out of it, you can see the water runs back into that footprint. And that's what it was doing. And I was trying to call these guys and say, they're here, but gone. They were gone. And I wasn't just going to open up in the bush. I didn't know how many there were that I was going to be taking out. And when I got back and I said, we've just missed them. That's where they were. And I saw their footprints. Oh, no, we haven't got anything. And they carried on. And I think we lost a lot of momentum in incidents like that, where guys thought, bugger it, we're not going to go back and do it again. Anyway, we got it away. And I'm sure I was in the sights of somebody that day. But anyway, I'm still here. Also in the Chivarro, in De Tito, we had a group that people that said this group, and I think it was still that was the group that we'd seen then, or it was another subgroup that we just missed there. But we'd been told this group is wandering through the Chivarro Hills, but it was a big group. There was something like 20, 25 of them coming through the Chivarro Hills. And we went out, 4 of us, to go and have a look for them. And we went to the other side near, I think it is Marymount, or that mission that there was always a lot of trouble around. There was a keep on that side of the hills. And we walked through, couldn't find anything. And we slept that night at this keep with the INTAF and the police. And our trucks came to fetch us. On the way back, we were coming through again. And there's a deep river crossing. You go down like this, and then you come up steep. So you're in low gear, and those crocs with all their weight on in low gear, and you're coming up the hill like this, and then it bends away and then makes an S-bend and carries on. And as we were coming up this hill, Paul Barter said, I'm sure we're going to get hit. We're going to get hit on this uphill. Now, as we got out to the top, he said, oh, well, haven't been hit. He'd no sooner said that when all hell let loose. and they had in the fork of a Masasa tree, they had a 14.5 in the fork of a Masasa tree, and they revved us big time with holes in the thing, and they were using AK armor piercing, and that at that stage they reckon that was the first time they'd ever seen AK armor piercing, and everybody, SB, all of them came and had a look at this croc later. But with that, the sergeant that was, a galloping sergeant that we had, around, we came through the side, and its casing came off and went whizzing around the inside of the croc. It hit him just here in between the eyes, and then went around his skull and lodged on the top of his head here. I had one of these black troops that we had, as we were firing back, opened up right next to me with his G3, and it was next to and I had my hair on the side here was singed, and my ears were stuffed off that. Consequently, today I wear hearing aids. It messed up my ears and everything. This guy firing right there, but in that scene, Paul Barter stood up again, and there was a big coloured guy who was the main group leader of this gang, and he was just going to plant him when this 14.7, this 14.5 took his barrel off, bang, just in front of the gas parts, gone. So he didn't have a weapon. He couldn't shoot this other guy, and we got out and we put in. I think we put in something like about 6 rifle grenades into the area, fired them off into the area, and these guys took off. But the trackers came in, we couldn't find any blood spore or anything, and RLI followed up, and I don't know, I didn't hear when anything happened after that, where they found anybody. But I was sent back to the doctors, and they said, no, you need to go and have your ears checked out because you've definitely got some hearing loss. But it was right at the end towards the end of 79, and the army assessed me, and I got a payout of $7,000 in those days, which was one massive amount of money. But I was relegated at that stage, in which it wasn't nice, to drill all and answering telephone at drill all as a switch bitch. And that was, early 80s, and then everything was over. But in that time, I lost 4 family members. Kenneth Cecil Gifford, up in Chipinga, Wolverhampton farm on the border of Mozambique, was our old pioneer farm, and he was busy servicing his Caterpillar tractor in his shed, and they shot him in his shed servicing his tractor, killed him. Then about a year later, his sister Rose was also Rosemary Hacking, hit a landmine in the Udzi area. She was going out to go shopping, and as she came over the cattle grid, hit a landmine, and she was just incinerated. And then, some months later, an aunt of mine, the Turners, and my cousin, they rocketed. They were in a Mazda Ute, and they were rocketed in the thing. Actually, 5 members I lost. They were rocketed in the cab, and the 2 of them were killed. My dad's cousin of my dad's, an old aunt, in the Gutu Chatsworth area. She was the midwife in the Gutu Chatsworth area, only midwife in the black hospital, and she delivered so many black babies and was well respected in the area. And Francis de Toy, Auntie Francis, and they came in and they got all of the maid and got her to open up the security gates, and they dragged her out of her bath at about 8 o'clock that night, in the neck, and they shot her, they killed her, and they murdered her there. But I believe a few years later, there was one that was wandering around the Gutu area, bragging about he was responsible for killing her. And what happened, that one of the farmers got to hear of it, and they formed an ambush and they killed him, because he'd murdered the old girl, and she'd done nothing but good stuff for the blacks in the area. I just think it was. I feel sorry for some of the blacks who were in the war as well, that from the other side, that were deceived, I think, and a lot of them were promised the world. They were promised cars, farms, houses, everything. And how many of those guys are destitute today, where their leaders, Mugabe and a few like Mnangagwa now and all that, are living the great life and taking everything from them and stealing, the whole tutti. And I just think how they were deceived.
Yeah.
And I think we could have had a better outcome.
Um,
It's just so sad that those things happened.
I see in your notes, one of my school buddies was Martin Oles. We were at school together, and
Yes.
I believe you also have a connection with that incident. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Martin, a man's man. It's a real mud
Oh yeah,
daughter that.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
was there.
man, he was as strong as anything. And he was my cousin Kathy's husband,
Yeah,
Kathy Gifford. Um, Kathy, at the age of 18 months, contracted polio. Her mom was teaching at one of the mission stations near Gwilla. And Martin fell in love with my cousin. She was oh man, just such a lovely person. She's in the UK now. Um, her and her two kids. But Martin and them farmed out at Yamadlovu. And apparently Martin had picked up the CIO intelligence, and they'd been poaching on his farm, and he gave them a bit of a touch up and chased them off because he found a couple of reetbuck or impala in the back of their ute. So he gave them a good touch up and good hiding, which he could do. Martin was a powerful bugger,
yeah, he was.
and he was, funny enough, he was awarded a bravery for saving somebody from a croc. I think it was a young black female, by Mugabe, and then they sent the 5th Brigade in to take him out, and the farmers in the area tried to get in there and get to him when he was being attacked. But he knew he was going to be attacked, and he said to Kath, "You and the kids get into Bulawayo. I'm going to do the last stand." And he was pig-headed, Martin. His brother is here in Australia now, in Perth. But it just had the guts of, he was scared of nothing, scared of absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
And he went back there. He made sure he had everything, all the weapons loaded and all the rest of it, because he knew they were going to come and take him out. And the 5th Brigade was sent in to take him out. And there was some report that they'd been seen in front of the charge office or in front of the prisons there, all parked in a row, early hours in the morning, on their way to him. And when everything went down, the farmers tried to get in. Butty York, a guy from, he's now in Perth, Ian Cameron McIntosh, and a whole lot of the other farmers tried to get in there to help him, but the police blocked the road. They wouldn't allow them in. And these guys were said that they were dissidents, war vets. No ways they were war vets. They were straightforward 5th Brigade, Mugabe's own troops. And they were sent in there. But according to my cousin Duff Gifford, who has been mentioned in this by
Percy.
Percy, because they did that raid into Botswana, where they captured those, and they blew that Land Rover. They did a bit of a somersault and all the rest of it. Now, in that Duff Gifford was his name. He was a Luti in Scouts, and he went there. And he said he counted a lot of blood pool, separate places where somebody had fallen and died.
Yeah.
And Martin had taken a lot of them out before they killed him, but he'd run out of ammunition, and they shot him in the head. I was very, very sad, very sad.
He was a good man.
But he was a good man, but my cousin Kath had to get out of the country. They were looking for her. She had her parents, aged parents, living with her, and they eventually got into the UK. And it took Tim Gibbs, also Humphrey Gibbs's son, I think it was. He was a farmer in Yamandovu, and he was then a parliamentarian in the UK Parliament. and he fought for them to get refugee status, because it was said, no, you can't get refugee status. You can't be a refugee, you're white.
Yeah.
And eventually Kath got a refugee status, and years later, the old folks tried to come out to visit Duff here in Darwin, in Australia, and it was found out that they were over here, and they were given a certain amount of time, a week or so, to get back. Otherwise, their refugee status would be cancelled. Because they said, no, refugees can't travel around the world. Well, refugees here can go back to Ethiopia and all the rest of it, and I don't know why. If you're a refugee, you're running away from something.
Yeah.
But they killed Martin's mom about a year after that. And it was horrible. And I don't think a lot of the world knows about what happened with Gukuruhunde.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know.
Yeah, no. The Gukurahundi, which, as you know, in Shona means the wind that sweeps clean.
Yeah, the winnowing of the chaff
is something that we haven't covered on this series. That hasn't been covered. The other thing that hasn't been covered is Ham Glennie, Natasha Glennie, their baby that was killed.
Oh, that was horrible. That.
Yeah, all Plumtree boys, eh? Martin Olds, think about. So a lot of these farm stories haven't been covered, and
yeah.
Yeah, look, it's something we haven't really touched on. I don't know if I really want to open that can of worms. I mean, I saw stuff that I haven't talked about, but where they herded the whole village into a grass barn, really, and set the barn alight. And then when we arrived as troopies, I saw, the smell of burnt flesh and everything.
Yeah, wasn't that at Kitty Estate?
I was only 18 at the time, and I'll never forget the smell and the memories, of that, and stuff like Elam Mission, and there's a lot of stuff we haven't covered in this series. Yeah. John, thank you very much for your stories. I'm going to stop recording now, but it's been great to chat to you, brother, and really appreciate the time that you've spent giving us your talk.